Hello, everybody. And welcome back to the Dynasty Wonderland podcast with me, the Mad Chatter Ryan MK. You can find me on the Twitters at RMK Madness. And as always, by my side, the March Heron, Aaron Stewart. What's up, buddy? How we doing?
Oh, doing good, man. This is a big week for us Roto Underworld writers. It is the week we go live with the draft kit. So it's a relief. Last week, extremely stressful. This week,
Yes.
all the hard work comes to fruition.
Yes, you take a nice deep breath after that. And it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
The guest we have in the Wonderland today to join this Dynasty Tea Party is the editor-in-chief at Roto Underworld and Breakout Finder. He's the five-time BWO United States champion. The Rockstar Revolution. Oh, Rockstar Revolution of Pro Wrestling. See, I fucked up the intro. I practiced it like 10 times, 5 times. I practiced it 5 times. 5-time BWO United States champion. The Rockstar Revolution of Professional Wrestling. The one and only. Ray Mars. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, gentlemen, thank you for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun, and no worry about fudging up the intro. It's all right. Actually, one of my older monikers I just kind of gave to myself when I started out, and I was kind of trying to decide like what to do as far as like what kind of character to be, and I just kind of ended up settling on the same thing that most guys settle on, which is some sort of version of some indie rock star type thing. I do actually have experience playing in bands and doing music, so I felt like,
Nice.
I could justify it. So, but yeah, it's a old nickname. I haven't heard that one in a long time. That's a great pull.
Hey, dude, I fucking dig it personally. And as far as fudging up the intro, I'm quite used to that. Even though I practiced it 5 times, as I said, even though I did, but I still fudge it, and it's right on brand. And I just tend to lean into that shit. We do that here. So
Nothing wrong with that.
being in pro graps, I wanted to just chat quickly because we tend to do that as well. Talk a little fun something before we get into, or serious something at times, before we get into the football stuff. And with you here, and I had no idea you're a musician as well, because I dabble in a little bit of music too. So this is great. But me and Aaron just had a combo. It was probably a month and a half ago or so. It was like a bonus part to the pod, just talking about pro wrestling and watching it with our dads. And so it's cool to have someone here who's actually done it, because I so badly wanted to. And I really tried. And not like I don't say that lightly, because I'm very aware of what it takes. But it's always fascinated me. I've loved it. I mean, when I was really training to try and get into it, I can't tell you, besides the physical stuff, how much wrestling I watched over in Steamboat Macho Man at WrestleMania 3. I watched that like a dozen times in a week, just trying to soak up every little bit I could. And so for someone, it's cool, not only the football side, but to have like, someone who's been in the ring here is very fucking awesome to me. So if you got anything cool to share, and Aaron, feel free to jump in as well, but if you got anything cool, stories or anything to share, that would be awesome.
Oh man, I mean, it's been a long time since I've been in the ring. I started from 2009 to 2014 primarily is when I wrestled, and it's been a couple of years, and I had this bad habit of putting off going to go see a doctor. Like I had told myself, after I stopped wrestling, I should probably go see him. Because I've had some lingering neck back issues. Kind of paying for that now, because I now finally starting to get some physical therapy and trying to like get myself back to a place where even if I don't wrestle full time at any point, I never have said I've retired. I just say I'm inactive. And it's not, I'm not in an area where there's a whole lot of show. I mean, if I were to go back to, it's a little bit different now, being married, having a number of dogs, a house. But it's definitely something that I think about all the time. And I'm trying to just up my, just stay in some sort of functional shape, just in case, an opportunity ever were to arise to ever do really anything. But it's I don't know, stories. I don't know if you get road stories, you got locker room stories, a lot of fun people I've met in the industry. I will say that I will say this. My favorite person I've ever met, as far as like a guy who's been on TV and had a sort of like clout, has got to be the Godfather.
Oh shit.
He came to a show. It was one of these shows where like these guys will come in, they'll do the big run in before intermission, and then they'll take pictures with the fans. They'll be in the main event. And all I remember is talking to him backstage. He's the chillest dude on the planet. And I totally believe this. The two stories that'll stay with me were number one, that he was wearing what it was, I think to this day, the only piece of merchandise that WWE ever sold at any point, just the flat out big ass marijuana leaf right on the t-shirt. And that he was wearing that. I'm like, they actually sold that shit on WWE shop for a little while, like at one point in time. And the other one, I think, was something about just getting high in a limo about 30 minutes before his Brawl for All. I don't know if you remember the Brawl for All back in the day. There's like a boxing tournament.
Yeah.
And he did not fare so well. He basically got knocked out.
And they had a. Oh, sorry.
We're talking about a guy who lived the gimmick. That is fire too, as far as that goes. He's my favorite.
They had a whole dark side of the ring on that Brawl for All, and it's golly.
There was some crazy shit to that.
Absolutely. My very first, just a quick segue to this Brawl for All thing. Like my very first WWE show I ever went to is that WrestleMania 15, where Butterbean fought Bart Gunn, who won the Brawl for All. When I tell you that I thought I witnessed a man being murdered in front of my eyes when Bart Gunn got knocked out, that will stay with me for the rest of my life. Like, even watching it now, I'm like, Stone Cold and The Rock, in one of their books, they were talking about like going over their match, and they were both like, Jesus Christ, watching on the monitor. Like, Brawl for All, something else, man. That's when wrestling was real.
When WWE was watchable.
Dude, I can't even watch right now. Like last week, this past week was the first time like that my wife and I like did not watch any like live WWE programming. We tried to watch a little bit of the pay-per-view, but like we've gotten like one match in. Like it's just hard, man. I want.
Was it the zombies?
Oh God, I haven't even got to the zombies yet, dude. Like, but it makes some sense because now I figure they were hyping some. It was like a Batista movie, I think they're hyping.
Yeah.
Well, it happened. That makes some sense.
It's just, from what I understood, it was way out of left field. Like I haven't watched it in I don't know how long, and I considered tuning in for WrestleMania because it was WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I just I have a hard time supporting that. Maybe when Vince is gone and Triple H is actually running the maybe that'll change a little bit. It's just some of the stuff. I don't know. I just have a hard time with it all. And then the product hasn't been great by any means. And AEW has been really good. And I fucking Britt Baker, she is fantastic. And I could watch her all fucking day. And then I love me New Japan. So when it comes to wrestling, I really probably wouldn't have time for WWE, but it's just, it's weird because I spent so many years watching it that it is weird not to now. It's
so hard. Like it's a lot of little things like SmackDown does not belong on Friday. SmackDown has always belonged on Thursday, and any other day feels weird. That's just the way it is.
I like Thursday. Yeah.
I know SmackDown's allegedly been pretty good. Like, and I've been hearing good things. Just like guys like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, like guys who are big in the indies. Guys that I kind of watched a lot of, and it's just hard to like get behind like what they're doing. Is it's just somehow in the back of your mind they're gonna screw it up.
I know that's where I got.
I was worried about that with AEW. They're so it's just such a better product right now.
But it's continuity, and Ryan and I have talked about this. Like both companies have a different idea for continuity. Like AEW, you can tell they've put thought into every decision, and they'll have these months-long feuds, but you don't get completely bored of it because you're not seeing the same singles match, tag team match. They'll do a job of they'll have people meet and then kind of go off and do their own thing. I mean, I'm ready to watch Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. Eventually, I hope it's a little ways down the road, but eventually, they're going to have the collision course. It's probably their next guy that they push for the championship. And WWE loves to shove the same match down our throat every week.
It's insane. And like, perfect example, like you're saying, talking about Britt Baker, like it's been like a years in the making now. Like she has to win the title, right? Like this is
fucking better, man.
Why they've kept the belt on Sheeta for so long. It has to be Britt. Yeah. After all, like, come on.
And they're doing, I think AEW's got a segment. What is it? They're honoring Sheeta. And I was like, that's kind of a weird omen. I feel like right before the pay-per-view, like you're honoring the champion. Like
maybe the first one to be a champ for to hit the year mark with the belt in that company. Maybe that's why. I mean, so it kind of intersects. So I kind of, but like you said, it's just such better. It always the long-term like story just always seems to find its way. And New Japan's the exact same way, and that's why
that was good. Yeah,
going to that product too. I mean, besides the in-ring action being just phenomenal. Maybe too good sometimes. I know I have not avoided spoilers, and I am afraid to watch Shingo versus Ospreay because I know now that what happens in that match, and now Ospreay is hurt, and I don't want to know how it happens, but I know the match is so good from what I hear.
Ospreay's hurt? I guess I didn't even hear that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He got hurt in the match?
For you. I guess I might as well now. The title is being vacated because he hurt his neck to the point where he has to give up belt. So the Tokyo Dome that's happening at the end of the month, because it was supposed to be Ospreay Okada, and Okada is wrestling, but I don't know yet against who.
Because I thought he got COVID. I thought Okada got
really?
COVID too. It may have been that he had COVID and he's good now.
Yeah, I thought that's why. Because I saw the shows got canceled, but I thought that was because Okada. Something with Okada because they had to cancel a couple of the Road 2 shows because of some people getting COVID. Damn, I'll tell you this much. I didn't see anything in the match when I was watching it. I'd have to watch it again because I didn't have my eyes on every second, but it wasn't an incredible match. It was insane.
I'm assuming that's how it happened because that news just broke a couple days ago, I think, and I don't really know as much about it because I'm a little bit behind.
Right.
But again, like the product, it's like you just know that like those matches are just like all timers at this point. Like, and I have a friend who, he's big into the backyard wrestling scene, was for a little while, and he used to wrestle at this place up in Pennsylvania. And Will Ospreay, a very famous backyard wrestler, apparently got. I guess he had a bit of a reputation for being a bit of an asshole in the backyard scene, but if you're that good, I'm sure, it's a little bit warranted. And I guess he got kind of a banned from an old, like one of these backyard places up in Pennsylvania. And when he won the IWGP title, the guy who ran the place was like, Will Ospreay is still banned from wherever it was. I'm like, that's doubling down. I kind of respect
it. For sure. Like, we don't give a shit.
To come back to WWE, for so long, it was really just them. There wasn't any serious competition. And I felt like they could always throw big money at people. No one could compete. And that's like they had a monopoly on the wrestling business. But with New Japan doing, and I don't follow it. I'm very interested in following it. I get kind of some of the main stuff. I find out that information, but New Japan's thriving. AEW is probably the best thing that's happened for this business. And even some of the smaller, like I'm actually enjoying Impact and what they're doing. They do seem to maximize what they've got. And Slammiversary, if it was like last year, Slammiversary is huge because they selected a few guys from that were part of the roster cuts from WWE, and they do such a good job of finding a good role for these guys and not being like, oh, you're an ex-WWE guy, you got to be our champion. And Ring of Honor too I know that was probably the hardest one that with COVID, like it took them about a year to kind of get things going again. So now Ring of Honor's back. It's wrestling business is good. There's opportunities, and how long can WWE keep doing the same crap of bad storytelling, like lazy television? They're in danger this next generation.
When it sounds like those writers live under the whim of fucking crazy ass Vince McMahon, and that sounds terrible. Like, imagine just the day shit's due, him coming in and say, no, this is all fucked up, redo it in like 2 hours. Like, no, dude.
I can't even imagine. Like, that's one thing I never got to do in wrestling is like a lot of people I know, they've gotten like guest spots as extras on Raw, like a security guard or part of a segment. Like, and I was one thing I never got to do. So I've never got to like be in like the backstage and like see how like how that kind of like atmosphere is. I almost got a spot on ECW early in my career. It would have been as a squash guy for Ezekiel Jackson, but
That'd have been crazy.
I was actually in the process of like getting like, ready to like go and like, cause I was supposed to have that happen at least the one time, but they ended up going with somebody who was about 6 inches shorter than me. I'm about 6'4", and it made for much better television to watch this dude is like 150 pounds, get tossed around like a rag doll. And watching Ezekiel Jackson just throw him into the mat at full speed, I'm like, I've got back and neck problems before I started wrestling. That might have killed me.
Right.
When I watched that night, I'm kind of glad it worked out the way it did. Even though I never got a chance to do it that on TV like that, or even have like a security guard or druid role or anything. Like
that would have been rough.
Oof. It's better. I think.
We may not be having this interview, this podcast.
Right. Oh,
And you mentioned long-term storytelling, and that's like when you see that in AEW, I go immediately like they got some of that. That's some New Japan flavor that they're throwing in, because good chunk of those dudes were in New Japan, even Cody Rhodes for a little bit, and so they got the taste of that, and they give their wrestlers more freedom, it seems, and like they don't have a shit ton of writers like WWE does, and so like. I don't know. It just seems more natural, I guess, all of it. And like, fucking speaking of your shirt, my boy Hiromu, that Hiromu Desperado match. Oh my God, that was insane. And the callbacks and just everything in that, like, that's fucking just pro wrestling right there to me. That's the beauty of it. And
when Desperado took off his mask, I legitimately almost peed in my pants. Like, I was hooked at that point.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, he really did it. I was watching it with my wife, and she was like, he really ripped it off. I was like, yeah.
My wife the same reaction, because she's like in and out with some of it, but she's enough of she knows enough about the roster to like know that I've been a low key Despy fan for a little while now,
right?
And like. When we both did the same reaction when he took that mask off mid-match, like, holy crap, like this has just got real.
Right. Okay. We're going to go ahead and move on. Unless anybody has any last final thoughts on pro-graps, as the kids say these days. I think we're good.
I got it all out.
I think we're good.
Yeah. All right. So tell me about this Zero Battle Redraft Challenge. Tell me about this. Aaron, go ahead. Explain this a little bit.
It is the fun concept of the ideology, the conflict of ideologies of how do you approach your draft? Do you build your draft around strong wide receiver ones on teams and then get your running backs late because running backs get hurt? Or do you get your stud bell cow running backs and figure out wide receivers because, hey, wide receivers there's a little bit more variance in their productivity. So in this 14-team league, I didn't even realize it was 14 teams. I thought it was 12 at first. 14 teams. Seven of the teams are 0 RB and 7 are 0 wide receiver. And our rules are you pick 12 players. It's a 12-round draft. First 6 rounds, whichever side you're on, you're not allowed to select the position. So I'm a 0 wide receiver, so is Ray in the league that we're in. We weren't allowed to take a wide receiver at all. Now, we could take any other position. We could take quarterback, tight end. Now, Ray and I, we're true zero wide receiver. We took strictly running backs the first 6 rounds.
That's fantastic.
And it was crazy. And so the zero running back people, they have to do the same thing, except they can't draft running backs. We're finally at the point where it's chaotic because I think we started round 7 at the beginning of today. And so now, like there was one team that was zero RB, right? And you go, like part of my plan was going, hey, I'm going to take 6 running backs because screw the other 7 guys. Like if they can't get running backs, oh well. And I think it was Ray, myself. Once there was one other person that like did strictly running backs. It's like if we all could have banded together and
it was Hillel.
It is.
Give it to all 3 of the guys with the underworld connections to be the ones that go full zero wide.
I love it.
Hillel took 7 running backs. He took Mostert in the 7th round. He didn't even go
did?
He started 7 straight. That is ballsy.
It was very ballsy because even when I took 6, like I did look back and sometimes the draft just goes the way it was. In the 3rd round, I thought about taking Josh Allen because I was like, okay, like a quarterback that runs like that. It's like that might be a good idea, but it's like, oh, I'll wait. I mean, maybe I'll have like a Dak, a Kyler Murray or something fall. That didn't at all, nowhere close. And I was like, well, fair enough. I kind of like following my board and I'm like, it's not worth reaching for other positions. We'll just get all the running backs. But when you've only got 5 bench spots and you can start at like 3 running backs at most, it's a little tight because I don't know how you start 7 running backs because that means the most receivers you could have is 3 and you have to start 2 of them. That is going to be a little rough. So props to him. He's gutsier than me.
I mean, that's the big paradox of it. That was the paradox I had last year because I made with my 0 wide receiver team, made it to the championship, and I knew it was going to happen. I knew I was going to pick the wrong running back, and that was directly the reason why I lost. I am dumb, and I had Jonathan Taylor, even though he was playing the Steelers, on the bench, and I think it was Josh Jacobs. Was the margin of like that was what I lost by, and I had the points on my bench. I should have fucking won. But so it's a little bit of a paradox there. But at the same time, like being able to just lock in those running backs, like I went 6 straight here. And it's funny also, like you said, actually, you're talking about taking Josh Allen. Somebody in our draft pointed out, that, relative to in the other draft, actually, that, quarterbacks are falling a bit. I'm like, well, it's still early and the run hasn't happened yet. Well, the run happened around this time in, the draft that we're in. And sure enough, as soon as I say that, boom, all the quarterbacks off the board. So that the guy at 101 is sitting there like, oh, well, now I can't take a quarterback. And he ends up with, it was like Javonte Williams and he took Tony Pollard at 501, literally to be like, oh, well, I'm going to screw all the 0 RB teams. And I'm doing 2. I'm doing a 0 RB team also. I'm in the 2nd league. I just want to see how I do with each team. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this guy's not in the other league. He doesn't know that, like, you took Tony Pollard in the 6th round. Like,
right.
He's not going to make it out of the top 6. Like, I took AJ Dillon. Like, people like might have been thinking those are the kinds of running backs that are going to be available to them. But, the best running backs available in that range were like Michael Carter, Raheem Mostert. Like, I'm a little bit worried what's going to look like in the other draft. We're in the 6th round right now. And I got to start thinking about some running backs soon. And one other thing I thought was interesting about this is that the 0 RB teams seem to be the ones going off the board because you're not precluded from taking a quarterback or taking a tight end. You can get them later. But for me, like, I like the idea of being able to pick a position that half of the league is locked out of.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge advantage to that. But at the same time, like, yeah, it's all about how the board falls. Like in my 0 RB draft, I drew 111. So, and it was the 6th of the 7 0 RB teams. And I ended up with Hopkins in the 1st round, Hillel picking right after me. He's a big Darren Waller guy. And I thought about taking tight end because I didn't know if, either Kittle or Waller would make it back. And he passed on Waller twice. So I took him in the 2nd round. I'm thinking like all the 0 RB teams seem to be the ones going quarterback and going, tight end because maybe they think, the depth will be there a little bit later on. Maybe they don't have to take as many receivers as you would, if you're doing 0 wide receiver and you have to take all these running backs. And I end up doing the same thing. And it might be a big positional advantage, but maybe, I don't know. That's just one of the things I found, like the zero RB teams being the ones to be the deviators.
It's quite interesting because because this is the first time I've done this, and looking back, I'm like, I would have been open to taking Waller because it's kind of a cheap way of bending the rules. Like no wide receivers, but as the guy that's covering the Las Vegas Raiders for the draft guide, you don't want any of those Raiders receivers. It's Darren Waller, and stay away from everyone else. Unless it's best ball, there might be one player, but I won't jump the gun on that one. There might maybe one receiver that has some value, but Waller is the real receiver, but technically a tight end.
Dude, this thing sounds awesome.
What side would you be, Ryan?
I'm not gonna lie. I am someone, I feel like zero RB can work, more specifically in a dynasty setting. But this, I don't know how you don't go zero wide receiver. Because if you can't draft till those like there's going to be receivers there. There's not going to be running backs. So I think you have to go zero wide receiver when you're doing in this kind of format. I think you have to.
Just to give you an idea of what receivers are available. Like, so after round 6, the 7th round, I got Tyler Boyd, and I'm very comfortable drafting Tyler Boyd because the Bengals, they pass a lot. Like they go, oh, there's Jamar Chase, but AJ Green, he got close to 100 targets last year. So they're going to throw a lot this year because they suck. And Boyd was sneaky good last year. So you get Tyler Boyd, whereas there was someone that took Alexander Madison, in the 7th round. Like, tell me which guy you want. The guy that has to rely on a Dalvin Cook injury, which, that's going to happen at some point, never playing 16 games. But are you even going to – you're going to have to wait like half the season, and are you still going to be in the hunt for the playoffs at that point?
Yeah. I mean, I chose zero wide receiver last year, and my first choice for this league is still zero wide receiver. And like you said, I think, Aaron, you and I had the same plan as what I did last year, 6 straight running backs, and then targeting these, even if they're the third option, they're the third options on teams that are going to be passing a lot. Last year, my wide receiver 1 was Tyler Boyd in the 7th round. Half PPR format, but he's still getting a lot of volume. Yeah. Last year, I did the same thing with my receivers for Boyd and Deontay Johnson. This year, I end up in the 7th and 8th as my wide receivers 1 and 2 with DJ Chark and Michael Gallup, both on teams that are going to throw a lot, and both on teams with what we hope with Trevor Lawrence, and we assume is going to be prolific quarterback play. And that's how you got to do it. Devontae Smith, you got him. He could be the number 1 in Philly as soon as this season. And, with Alexander Madison as your number 1 running back, it's what you have to do. No matter what strategy you pick, you have to get the right waiver running back. So you have to go do what you can for like the Mike Davis last year. And the reason last year my team ended up being as good as it was because I ended up with Wayne Gallman. And that was a big mid-season push guy, helped me to the couple of wins I needed to really kind of solidify my spot. That's going to be the big key is who's going to, I don't know if it's free agent budget or if it's just waiver priority and you just got to get lucky, but that's going to be blow a long way towards. And if you're one of these zero RB teams, you need to be the one to win that player, because if you're a zero wide receiver team and you get Wayne Gallman and someone else who needed him doesn't get him, they're basically pretty fucked for all intents and purposes.
Right. Because also, I didn't even mention this, Ryan. One of the other things too is, if I understand the rules correctly, it's guys taking the first 6 rounds. I don't know if it's restricted to the running backs or receivers, but guys in the first 6 rounds cannot be traded. No,
I don't think they can be traded. Anyone, and you're kind of locked into these guys. Like that's also the advantage for zero wide receiver. Unless guys like the guys we're picking get hurt, we have no reason. You have no reason to drop Tony Pollard. Yeah. I have Aaron Jones. I have no reason to drop AJ Dillon, who I picked up in the 6th round for any reason. So I might not go as hard on some of these, big free agent potential running backs, unless it could be like a potential league swinger or in a spot where I need it, like a Wayne Gallman. Like I didn't go after James Robinson last year, and that probably would have helped me. But at that same time, I've got good enough running backs. Like where the hell am I going to put him with one flex spot? It's a bit of a paradox, but you want to have depth at least to make sure you can, fill those spots.
Absolutely, man. I like the game theory that Ray's bringing to this. I'm probably gonna be in trouble. I'm sitting there just first time. It's like understanding the concept, but man, I'm ready to learn this year and then be right back in it next year and be like, okay, I'm ready for it.
Oh yeah.
It always is. I feel like, and you ever see when these strategies, like you're not in too many leagues where half of the people are using zero RB and half of them are using zero wide receiver.
Yeah, that's
usually like only one or two teams in each league are doing each draft. So it is super interesting. Like this is, I think Hillel describes it as basically like a big social experiment, and it's probably the best way to describe it because like, there's so much that can happen, and a lot of it's going to be dependent on like who gets lucky and gets the right player to get hot at the right time.
Well, and I think that's probably what intrigued me about this is you mentioned it's a social experiment, and Ryan knows that I've been performing my own one with Twitter where I literally took a dynasty team and I was getting really frustrated because I got all these crappy trade offers and I was denying all of them. And my team didn't do well in the first year of the Dynasty League. Literally, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. It was just injuries. I went running backs to start the draft, and it was like Chris McCaffrey, Aaron Jones, Miles Sanders. And at one point, I had none of those guys for like a 2-week period. I'm like, crap. And none of my young guys I took panned out. Sorry, Andy Isabella. Like it was rough. So I was sitting there with the second worst record, and I was like, okay, I really screwed the pooch on this one. And I wasn't going to leave the league, but I was frustrated with horrible trade offers. And I said, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. Every single trade offer I get, I'm going to put on Twitter. And whatever Twitter votes on is what I'm going to do. Twitter did screw me over on one trade. They made me trade Aaron Jones for like nothing. It was Kareem Hunt and garbage. Donald Parham was part of it. And I was like, really, Twitter? Really? But it's, I kind of got the inspiration. There's, for people that do Twitch, like Twitch did a whole thing of Twitch plays Pokemon. They took Pokemon Red and everyone that was streaming could give the character commands. And eventually they beat that game. So I was like, can Dynasty win it? Can Twitter win a dynasty league? Can they make all the trades, all the lineup decisions? I think I'm screwed. I think I'm almost out of 2022 draft picks.
Oh my God. It's an interesting experiment, but I'm going to err on the side of saying that I don't think Twitter is going to help win a dynasty league. I had to guess.
It's interesting. I'm getting ready to post. So I've also tried like each week to go, here's all the trades that you guys have done, and this is what our team looks like from last week to this week. So there have been some good ones, like and it's helped me learn some dynasty tricks of properly valuing rookie picks, because I do tend to get a little excited about acquiring rookie picks. But as this draft class shows, something that looks good at the beginning of the college football season, you get to the rookie draft and you're like, all these running backs really suck. So
it kind of has me worried because I've been hearing for a while that 2022 is supposed to be such a good class. I'm like, I hope you're right.
Right.
I hope.
I'm trying to build up some draft. I've been trading back a lot this year in rookie drafts. There's maybe like one league I'm in, like a best ball league, where really nobody wanted to trade. So it's like the only league where I'm able to get guys like a Rondale Moore, and I'm not trading out of the pick. New underworld favorite Dwayne Eskridge. Also, I'm like, that's the kind of a guy I want in a best ball format.
Mm-hmm.
He used us as motive. Did you guys see the video? I was trying to figure out whether it was that he made the video. Like, it was apparently a video that he made pulling some footage of some of the underworld like pods where like they were not like talking trash about him, but like we kind of like saying he wasn't gonna be as good as and then I guess he like made like this like hype video out of it, like, and I was like, oh man,
it was pretty sweet too. Ryan, did you see that?
No, I did not.
Dwayne Eskridge made it, or like someone on his team.
Right.
Yeah, and I was like, that's baller. Like I get it. We're being kind of burned alive here on this, but that's not a sign that like we're with something awesome here at Roto Underworld. I don't know what is.
Right. And we're Bayesians here. We had to move Eskridge up after that. I mean, how do you not?
We motivated them.
That's fantastic. Dude, the zero battle redraft challenge, back to that real quick, because I love different and challenging stuff when it comes to fantasy football. That's why I love guillotine leagues. These fucking things, that is an intense draft because there's so many fucking teams, and you know it's going to be forever before you get to pick again. Once you, it's crazy, and so I love different stuff like that. And so sounds awesome, and sounds like you guys are at least on the right path, if you ask me, because that's the way I would have went. I don't know that. And okay, so we kind of had some random fantasy thoughts talking about the Twitter, you know, experiment with the Dynasty League and whatnot. So let's keep that going with Julio and where might he end up? Because really there's no news, nothing to talk. So let's just hit on Julio real quick. And I'd like to hear, when it comes to this kind of thing, from Aaron, who is the what, Aaron? What's your new nickname?
I came up with the salary captain.
The salary captain.
Love it.
We need to hear from the salary captain on this.
Love it.
I love it too. It's fucking great.
you could tell that we're all wrestling fans. I was like, I'm trying to find my mark here. You know, there's Angry Larky. You know, we've got Mad Chatter, Ryan MK. What do we have for you, right? Like normally Ryan's he'll come up with a
Rockstar Revolution. Well, see, I know, because with Cody, I went with Dormouse, and then I was like, huh, which was kind of funny because he's a big dude.
Huge.
Yeah. And that was kind of the point of it. And I was like, and I thought about it, and I was like, really, but it's more like we've got the tea party going on, and we bring on a guest. And so it's almost like an Alice or someone else coming to visit us at the tea party. So I was like, I don't think we need to refer to him as Dormouse, but it was fun for Cody just because, you know. So, but yes. Eric,
to answer your question on Julio, so a lot of people, you know, you go on Twitter and there's a lot of people that go, I don't get what the Falcons are doing if they're rebuilding. Why would they trade Julio? Why would they trade him now? Why not before the draft? A whole bunch of things there. Fortunately, I dig into the salary cap stuff big. So I'm gonna start with the first question people have. Like, why didn't they trade him during the draft? And the answer is, unless they wanted to eat the 40 million dead cap that I think most people know, is they're like, he has a massive dead cap. They can't get rid of him. They can move him with this thing called the post June 1st trade, which, as its name applies, you can trade them after June 1st. You can split up the cap hit. So for the upcoming season, they take on all of the guaranteed money for 2021, which is actually a smaller number. It's $7.5 million. It's a signing bonus. There's an option bonus. That's all that's going to be on their dead cap for 2021. The rest of that $33 million does roll over to the next season. It's a little rough. Some of that may not qualify because it's like his salary that's guaranteed, but it's beneficial for the Falcons to move him post June 1st than before, because their salary cap just would not allow it. It would have cost them $40 million to move on. And because they couldn't trade him before June 1st, they also can't get draft picks before June 1st. So there was no way they were going to get 2021 picks, 2022 draft picks. I'm probably looking at a second rounder and maybe something else. I don't think you're going to get a first rounder for Julio, but the earliest draft picks they get is 2022. The other thing that I discovered in researching this is players get their contracts restructured all the time in the NFL. And I was on Twitter, Anand Nanduri, I think I didn't butcher that name, but that was the guy that Josh had on his podcast. I think it was like the third episode. He had the salary cap guy that works in the NFL. And I was kind of picking his brains a little bit and going, okay, like, how does the restructure work? Like, are there, like, would you choose players based on their positions? And the simple thing was, you're not going to restructure someone's contract unless you plan on keeping them for a little while. A restructure is taking a player's salary, which is unguaranteed money. The only thing guaranteed in a player's contract is they sign a contract, they get a signing bonus. That's most of the guaranteed money. So restructure is they take a player's salary for the year, they drop it to the minimum. So on the books, it looks like you're barely paying a player and you've created all this cap space, but you're spreading it out over the rest of their contracts. So it's, if you restructure a guy, just know that you're not cutting him that year, probably not cutting him the next year. The Falcons did it with Matt Ryan and Deion Jones, one of the defenders, but they didn't do it with Julio Jones. It kept the door open that they could at least consider moving him. I thought that was interesting there because the Falcons had no cap space. That's why Mike Davis is the starting running back there. They had no money whatsoever, and they could have gotten money if they restructured Julio, but by not restructuring him, he might play there. But I thought that increased his chances a lot. And then lo and behold, I wrote this article, and then it's all the hype for Julio trade went like sky high. I was like, oh, I missed the timing on it. Oh, so rough. But the lack of a restructure, the fact that they had to wait for June 1st to get here. That's why they didn't trade him before the draft. It's a weird situation too, because I think both you guys probably heard there was the Shannon Sharp, like he on air, Shannon Sharp calls Julio. Yeah. And I don't know how much of that's kind of staged. We had our wrestling talk, it's how much of that is real or how much of that is like, did he intentionally sabotage like his trade value so that he could have a little bit more control of where he goes? Possibly. That business gets vicious on both sides, but those are probably the two main points. And also, if you go to Player Profiler and you pull up that medical history report, oh my goodness, he's like just about every part of his body is colored. And
right,
2017 was the only year he didn't sprain a ligament or strain a muscle. He's 32 years old. I have a little bit of a medical background. I had my undergrad in pre-physical therapy. You get older, that stuff's, we saw with LeBron James, high ankle sprain, you're more susceptible to these, just that's science. You get older, you're going to, the strains on muscles, the sprains of the ligaments get stretched, they don't go back. So it just seems to be the perfect time. And this Falcons team, they missed their window. And people that go, they should have drafted Justin Fields. In theory, I think like that makes sense, grab a quarterback. But the NFL way of viewing that is the Falcons would have taken their fourth quarterback option. I think they would have gone QB if they had Fields higher than QB4, but taking the fourth quarterback off the board versus their selection of any other player. I know that we're not exactly Kyle Pitts guys, but apparently generational talent, having their pick of the top non-quarterback, I think they just went best player available.
Interesting. Sounds like that's actually what maybe Denver did too, is what I was reading, that they were into Trey Lance. And once Trey Lance was off the board, it was like, what non-QB do we like? So I think there was a lot of it. And Aaron, I think maybe eventually you'll be right that something might come out about Fields. It blows me away. I understand being the fourth quarterback, but it's still, with his talent, it does make you wonder if there is something there.
Yeah, something's just off. I mean, we saw with Darius Geis last year. It's like, oh, these were the character concerns that were scaring people in 2017, because none of it makes sense. Fields was great at Ohio State playing against top competitions. So there's something. There is something going on that the NFL knows that we won't know ever.
I fucking hyped up Geis so much the year that happened.
Me too.
I hyped him up so fucking much. Holy shit. It was bad. It was bad. I hyped him up so much. And then that happened. And I was like, fuck, this could have been the one guy that just could not do this to me, was this guy. Because I hyped him way too much. Never again. Never again am I going that hard for it. Oh, back to Julio. What are we thinking, Aaron? What teams could take him on?
one team that is interesting because the Falcons, of course, go, we're not trading them to the NFC because we don't want to play them. I get that. But also, well, my one counter on that is if you're rebuilding, like just get whatever the best trade is. Like stop thinking about this. Like we can't trade them to a conference rival. If you're rebuilding, by the time you're contending again, Julio's probably retired. But going off what they're saying, if it's the AFC, the Chargers make a lot of sense. They didn't really address receiver at all. Like, yes, there's Keenan Allen in the slot, Julio on the outside there. Julio can still play. Problem is, it's just you're going to have to watch his snaps. It's a person that's played Julio in fantasy football. Like, it always seems that he catches a pass early in the game and then he disappears. It's like, what's happening there? So, and Mike Williams isn't the answer. My goodness, Mike Williams with his injury history is like a younger Julio, just less athletic. With Herbert on a rookie contract where you're paying him well below starting quarterback price for the next 3 seasons, along with a 5th-year option. To me, the math adds up because I think Julio's got at most 3 years. I think maybe he finishes out this contract and maybe another season at most, and that just times up perfectly with Justin Herbert. By the time Julio's gone, you pay Herbert, bring in another guy, maybe Palmer at that time. He's ready to take over.
I love it, dude. Pair him with a young quarterback.
I'd probably give him a good window as far as like being. There's a couple teams I think that could, if they are able to trade for him, kind of increase that window. I mean, I know New England has been a little bit of a rumored destination for him, and I think that would be good for his overall value. I mean, Tennessee seems to be one that was picking up steam, at least in the last 24 hours, as far as a potential landing spot. And I think these are teams that can fit him in. I don't know about. I mean, I know Aaron is a better understanding salary cap wise. I mean, I know Indianapolis was one I had heard a little bit early in the process. And these are teams that they have I think the systems and the quarterbacks in play so that Julio would have the best chance at winning a championship. But if you really want to talk about a team, that could win a championship with him. And the one team that feels like the dream spot that I also feel like not a single person has mentioned, and I don't know how it would work salary cap wise. Is there a reason why Kansas City can't be the team to trade for him? Pair him up with Mahomes and give him a second receiver finally?
Well, and I'll say too, like people that go with salary cap stuff, like the easy solution on that is they trade for him, they extend his contract, and then they restructure. So they take like whatever his salary for the upcoming season is, make it the veteran minimum. And that seems to me, that makes the most sense to me for Julio is he gets more money. He's going to be happy about that. So these teams, the people that go, what, like this team can't get him because of salary cap. Shoot, we see every offseason. It can be manipulated.
Yeah. That's the craziest fucking thing. There are so many different hijinks that go with it. I mean, the whole voided years and all this shit. I'm like, just good God. There's so many different ways around stuff.
Yeah, how do you think I feel? I'm supposed to be the guy that's supposed to be the expert on this, and I'm like, my goodness, I can't even predict which teams are going to do this type of shenanigans.
I know. I'm always asking you. Okay. All right. That's all I got. If you guys have anything else to add before we take a quick break and come back, anything else, final thoughts before we do that?
Just trying to think if there's like an obvious team that I'm thinking about that has not been mentioned. I feel like Kansas City was the only one I could think of that I don't see any real good reason why they wouldn't at least send out a feeler. I mean, but it's one that no one really seemed to mention, but I don't know if there's any others. I mean, I could just go full homer and say the Giants should do it because, YOLO, but,
in NFC, San Francisco,
I know
a
was
lot
going
of
to
people.
say I heard about San Fran.
Yeah,
that makes sense too.
Shanahan was during Julio's the 2 years where Julio was just putting up ungodly numbers and staying healthy. It was Shanahan that was the offensive coordinator, and people go they think too much fantasy football. They go, they got Ayuk and Debo, but I'm sorry, in real NFL, if you can take Julio and put him and Ayuk on the outside. Debo is just a monster in the slot. Like anyone listening to this, go look at his yards after catch last year. I've never seen that. I've never seen a guy get so much of his production after the catch. It's like only 4 yards that weren't after the catch.
Absolutely crazy.
So that'd be the fun offense. I'd be watching with Lance at quarterback. Oh my God.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Where does Cleveland sit on the salary cap?
I usually go to Spotrac. Let me refresh because sometimes their site gets weird. Like right now, it's duplicated all the players. So if I go off what Spotrac's telling me, everyone's like $100 million over the cap. It's
gotcha.
It's humorous. Let's see. Where are they?
I just feel like when it comes to receiver, I keep coming back to them because I just feel like if they're not going to get, they got Schwartz, but if they're not going to get someone like super young, I mean, because Jarvis is getting up there, Odell, like I still like Odell a little bit, but there's something off with him and Baker. I don't know what the hell it is. It seems like there's something off with them. However, last year they played in a lot of shit weather games early on in the season, and they were just getting the offense implemented and things like that. And then Odell gets hurt. So we'll see what happens here. But I'm just thinking, I know he's older as well, but if you throw Julio out there too.
Oh my gosh. Like that team, nobody's really talking about the Browns in total. That's a stacked team. They've got the pieces to be a Super Bowl team.
Mm-hmm.
They have a smart front office and they know what to address. And on defense alone, like that's where they spent all their money this offseason. It's something like half their projected starting defense guys they went and brought in for different teams. They brought in 2 guys in the secondary from the Rams, and the Rams secondary last year was maybe best in the NFL. And got Myles Garrett as the primary pass rusher and a couple of knuckleheads. But if they can get their stuff together, Clowney and McKinley, Tackrus McKinley, those guys on the opposite side of Garrett. So, man, I'm with if they just add. If they're Thanos and just add the final piece there, get Julio Jones, because why not?
Right.
Even on offense, like golly, I hope they stay healthy. They've got deep tight ends, a running back duo. You're right. Odell it's weird there. It just hasn't clicked. And if you put Julio and Odell on the outside, Landry in the slot, because Schwartz should be fun to watch. Let's breakout finder favorite, but he's still a rookie. I mean, you can't expect him to come in and play a massive role.
No, they just seem to be heavily investing. Like they're ready to fucking ramp up and go. And I'm like, that could be like a final piece type situation. And I got a little bit of a soft spot for losers. And I've loved seeing the Browns come back to relevancy. And so I kind of want to see them kick ass this coming year. So
they've been a fun underdog team the last few seasons because Vegas is conditioned, like, just as you said, they're the lovable losers. And so Vegas, it was like 3 years ago where like they'd be like almost a 2 touchdown underdog. And I'm like, no, like they might not win this game, but Cleveland just has enough fight in them and enough talent to keep it close. So I've been pulling for Cleveland for a while because I like that front office. Front office knows what they're doing. Thank goodness they got rid of John Dorsey. He almost screwed everything up.
And they got a good coach in there, I think.
Great coach. Utilize what they got.
Yep. This is what Sashi died for, right? To see where Cleveland is at now.
He planted the flag. Sashi did it. Everyone that says Dorsey built the team is like, yeah, the assets that Sashi Brown got. Like any GM could have came in. It's like taking over the one dynasty team that has, I don't know, Kamara, McCaffrey, Cook.
Right.
You don't have to do much. Just stay out of your way.
All right, fellas. We'll take a quick break, mainly because per usual about this time, the chatter has to empty his bladder. So that's usually what they do. Lots of fluids go in the chatter. So that's what we got to do. So TMI, I know. But we take a quick break. We come back. I put together a little game called Fanboozled, which is a little bit of a play off of Friends thing. I'm going to get into that in a sec. But we shall return in just a sec. All right, we back. And we move on to this wonderful game that I've invented, because I have to do these wild, crazy things when we have guests on for some reason. Because I like to get crazy, I guess. Now, this game show is called Fanboozled. It's lightly based on Bamboozled from the TV show Friends. And I just really quick have to say, I don't know why everybody hates Friends. Even though it's kind of a ripoff of a Living Single from back in the day. And so look at that, stealing shit from black people. But still, very good show. And I'm a fan. And I never understood the hate on it other than the Living Single thing. I never understood the hate because, come on, 3 beautiful women, 3 dudes that are pretty funny. They got stoner shit in there. I never understood the hate. Anyway, Bamboozled was a game that they played on there. It was some game show Joey was auditioning for. So they did a little like run through with him. So lightly based on that, Fanboozled for fantasy football Bamboozled. Okay, and here's what we do. 6 rounds, trivia question each round. Whoever buzzes in and gets it right will then pick a topic and chat about it for a few minutes. Whoever gets it wrong, they'll get a few seconds to, say a little something about the topic, and then they'll have to pick from what I like to call the nefarious numbers. And that will require said person to do something such as possibly spell a player's last name, maybe, something like that. So we get into the game, and we start Bamboozled with question number 1. Round 1, question 1. Who had more fantasy points in 2020, CeeDee Lamb or DJ Moore? Ray.
I'm going to guess DJ Moore. I don't know this off the top of my head.
Incorrect.
I don't know why.
It makes you feel better. I was going to say I would have gone Moore as well.
I changed my answer mid-thought. I was going to say Lamb. I was like, no, it's definitely a trap. But alas.
That surprises me. Wow. Like, was it a games played thing? Or, I mean, I know Lamb had a great start, but I thought he faded.
Well, this will be funny. Not starting out how I had planned or intended, but that's okay. Next time, get in there a little quicker with the wrong answer, Aaron. Jesus.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I was supposed to be the jobber. Should have got
Okay.
Alex Erickson. Sir, that's not an option.
All right. Mr. Aaron, which category, my friend?
Oh, let's go Dynasty Management.
Yes, sir. Okay. Pick the one off the top. Top sell candidates in Dynasty.
Gotcha.
What you got for me?
I got a list. How much should I limit it to? We got a number? Should it be 2?
I'd say go a few minutes, 3 to 5.
Gotcha. I'll start with spicy one, Travis Kelce, who had this historic tight end season this past year, and still in Kansas City. It's still him and Tyreek. That production, along with his age, is the reason to sell him. In Dynasty, you're trying to capitalize on players' value, and you want to sell them before their value craters. With Kelce, if you can get a younger tight end, maybe you get Noah Fant as part of the trade package, along with some draft capital. Maybe you're hurting at running back or receiver. Those positions are, my opinion, more important. This is the time to sell Kelsey. I would hate it in the short term, but every player, Julio Jones, who we talked about, you really can't sell him anymore. So why not? This may be the last year to get full value on Travis Kelsey. The next guy's not an old guy, but it's a guy that's been dominant at running back, and that's Alvin Kamara. Brian and I actually talked about him on the last show. And simply put, without Drew Brees, that floor for Kamara is scary. There was a 4-game stretch that he didn't have Brees at quarterback, and he did average four targets a game. The problem was something like 12 of those, no, 10 of the 16 targets in the 4-game stretch came in one game. He had 6 targets in the other 3 games combined. It went 1, 2, 3 targets. Those were his 3 worst games of the season in terms of his usage in the passing game. And with Kamara, there was, I want to say the stat was 46 games in between 100-yard rushing games. He had one this season, late in the season, the Minnesota Vikings game that won people a lot of championships. And before that, you'd have to go back, not the previous season, but the season before that. And also including playoff games. So Kamara is fantastic as well, but just like Kelsey, let's try to get ahead of these guys, sell them. Maybe you can get, maybe in return, maybe you can get a DeAndre Swift plus something. And I love DeAndre Swift going forward in the Detroit Lions offense. And to give one more, Justin Jefferson. I know it's a sin. It's a young guy that produced. But can he go any higher than what he is right now? I mean, he had a NFL historic rookie season. Similar to the other 2 guys, it's a matter of capitalizing on guys' value. Justin Jefferson, right now, he's the number 1 wide receiver in that draft class. But if I can move him and get CeeDee Lamb, we just talked about in the trivia question, CeeDee Lamb is off to a great start. Dak got hurt, and then Andy Dalton couldn't cut it. If I could get CeeDee Lamb plus something, I'll take that.
I actually really like that. I like all of them. And I love Justin Jefferson. You know me. I'm a big fan of better a year early than a year late. So I love the Alvin Kamara call, especially because I have traded every Dalvin Cook. I hate the term share, but that I've traded all my Dalvin Cook. I no longer have him on any of my rosters, and I feel good about that. And I got some really good stuff from those trades. So I'm all for that. Mr. Ray, would you like to add anything to the conversation?
Well, I definitely, like you guys are talking about, like the high profile running backs, they may be the hardest for people to sell, but they are going to get you the most in, as far as return on investment goes, especially if you're selling to a guy that is, or a player or a team that's in contention. But, Kamara, and like you said, Dalvin Cook is another one. I'm looking just a lot of these lifetime values that we have in our dynasty rankings and trying to like juxtapose like maybe along these higher ranked guys, as you can always talk about guys you want to add in as like throw-ins, giving or receiving in a deal, but focusing more on the top of the draft and the guys the harder to part with guys like the Dalvin Cooks and the Alvin Kamaras. It does make sense with a guy like Dalvin Cook, especially if you want to talk about getting out ahead of something. I mean, he's kind of at the peak of his powers now, which makes it even harder, but he's not been seriously injured, I don't believe, since he had the early career ACL tear, but it's always just a little something here and there. Like last year was a groin strain, and always just a little something that causes him to miss time. And before too long, that will start to accumulate. Really, as far as top tier players go, all right, where is he here? Okay. So I think we are definitely a little lower still on Josh Allen than consensus, even despite the year that he had. I think in our dynasty rankings, we have him valued in kind of like that in startups, or I guess in the rankings, kind of like that, like mid to late 6th round range. And his ADP has him as a top 40 pick. And it makes a lot of sense intuitively because we think that he finally broke through and had that, that turning point, and the continuity is going to be huge for him. I think, especially for this year, because he kept, all his major weapons. He kept Brian Dable, which is a huge part of his development. But once Brian Dable does leave and take a head coaching job, it's going to be fair to question, even with the presence of a Stephon Diggs, how much of what we're seeing from Josh Allen right now is sustainable. And I don't know about, I'm sure in Superflex, trading a quarterback would get you a much bigger return on investment, but he is probably the highest profile player I can think of that if I owned him anywhere in Dynasty, that would be what I would be trying to kind of put on the block, see what I can get. And Dalvin Cook being the other one.
I love it.
One other scary thing with Dalvin Cook is look no further than Todd Gurley and Le'Veon Bell. Like both guys had these 2 years where they were top. They were guys you took like top 3 in Dynasty startup drafts, and look how quickly it changes. And Dalvin Cook and Aaron Jones, their running backs have finished, I want to say it was like they've had back-to-back top 5 seasons like Bell and Gurley had. And you look at the season after being that dominant, it was a gradual drop-off for Gurley. Actually, no, it was a steep drop-off for Gurley and kind of a gradual one for Le'Veon Bell. So you're right. Like Dalvin Cook absolutely like pains you to part with him because he probably led you to a championship. But yeah, you hold on for 1 year's time. Look what happened with Gurley. Gurley, you can't do anything with him now.
Yep. And that's why I will literally let a guy hang on my roster for 2 or 3 years of running back, and then I'm ready to sell and move on, I keep cycling them. And it sucks. I wish they got paid more. If there should be some clause in there for specifically for that position, like get more money in the rookie contract, something, because then they're relying on basically when it comes to new contracts, getting paid for past production as opposed to what they will bring to the table. And that's a hard sell. And it's unfortunate. But I take that stance in Dynasty leagues. I just cycle them in and out. Like I have Aaron Jones on one roster. Haven't been able to trade him yet. But other than that, most of my rosters are filled with young dudes just because that's how I like to keep it going. But anyway, we have to, of course, Mr. Ray. Nefarious numbers, 1 through 6. What you got?
Number 3. I am technically a third. My dad and my grandfather are also both Rays, but I have this different middle name, so I'm technically not actually a third, I guess.
I like it.
But I'm still always a third growing up, grade 3, so.
That's okay. I'm actually a fan of the number 3.
Awesome.
Say Friarmuth 3 times while patting your head and rubbing your tummy. This was specifically designed for me.
I'm bad at coordinate. I mean, for someone who's a musician, coordination's never been my strong suit. So rub and pat. Friarmuth, and Friarmuth.
There you go.
For a second, I was like, am I going to have to spell this guy's name?
Oh, no. No, not that
He's
way.
Pittsburgh Pat to me. It's
possibly one of my favorite nicknames. Okay, so next trivia question. How old is Rob Gronkowski, the Gronster?
I'll go for this one. 33?
Oh, 32. Hey. Okay.
It's a year off.
So, Mr. Ray. Now you pick for the topic, best ball dynasty management or rookie love.
Let's go with best ball. Yeah, best ball. Let's go best ball.
Best ball.
Let's do it.
All right. Okay. Who are some of your top targets in best ball drafts this year?
All right. Top targets in best ball drafts. So before the NFL draft, I did a couple of underdog drafts, wrote about a little bit for my Tales from the Underworld series. And some of the guys I was ending up with a lot of Giants, and I never really gravitate towards Giants, but I think for best ball, you're going to want a lot of NFC East guys this year. I mean, we talked about on the air about the NFC East kind of being a premier potential shootout division this year. And pre-draft, I was getting a lot of Sterling Shepard late, and Kadarius Toney was still there in like the last 3 rounds, and he ended up becoming a Giant. So it was kind of fortuitous in that sense. But looking at where some of these players fall on the underdog rankings compared to where their underdog ADP lies, and just looking at the players that we are highest on than consensus. And some of these guys don't have, like, we were talking about a Dwayne Eskridge before. His ADP is right at the end of these things. And he's a guy who, for a best ball format, he's kind of like the perfect player. He's like he can be this utility guy. He can give you these boom weeks based on 1 or 2 trick plays that go right for him. And at wide receiver 3 spot is wide open. But, you were talking about Raiders, not to, depend on any non-Waller Raiders unless, otherwise proven. But you can get Bryan Edwards, at the end of these things, and like near like around like the 15th, 16th round. And he's kind of a guy who's going to go in that that range. So you're going to have to use at least some sort of underdog draft capital on him. But, as far as, NFC East players, Daniel Jones is still going super late as far as if you want I think you want for these underdog drafts, you kind of want a 2 quarterback, 2 tight end build if you can help it, and then kind of build around that. But if you have to take a third guy, I don't see a reason why Daniel Jones won't give you boom weeks based on what the Giants are doing with that offense. But he's a guy that we're about 20 plus spots ahead of ADP. His ranking is about 20 spots ahead of where his ADP is currently. And just looking, I'm going to run down some of these names. This is Josh Larkey's underdog best ball rankings. If you part of the world famous draft kit, part of the cheat sheet.
Yes, sir.
But a lot of rookie got, so like a Nico Collins is up here, Bryan Edwards, we talked about, Carson Wentz even for quarterback. And that could be a really interesting, potential third quarterback to take too, especially if you end up getting some these late Colts players, so you get like a Paris Campbell late, or even a Mo Alley Cox, who's another one of these guys we're ahead of consensus on, Paris Campbell. Let's see, we're 20 plus spots ahead on Christian Kirk, Traquan Smith. And one I like also, especially if you have a Derrick Henry. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of handcuffing and, big tournament style best ball formats, but I think in some lineup builds, it makes sense. And I think it is a guy that not a lot of people are considering, but in a best ball format, I think he's kind of a perfect late round running back guy to kind of bolster the back end of a roster. In the event that, obviously anything happens to Henry, we're looking at, Brian Hill's the only other guy right there. And we've all been waiting for Brian Hill to break out for forever, but it just might not happen at this point. Darrington Evans to me is a guy I'd love to get as like a wraparound piece at the end of these things. But, other than that, you've got your Denzel Mimses and these guys, these underworld type favorites. We love, the Adam Troutmans of the world. Honestly, even Gus Edwards is a guy I'm a little bit surprised. He's probably one of the higher profile guys we have ranked that we're a little higher on consensus on. And that makes some sense because we're generally lower on Dobbins. So by definition, we probably should be a bit on Edwards. But these are all just guys that you can get near the end. And because in the beginning, everyone's kind of looking at the same players anyway. But where you're really going to stand out is when you're going to need a lot of these receivers for depth. But it's just depending on, how you want to build your stacks, who you want to take when you still got a guy like, maybe like a Josh Reynolds even too, if you want to talk about Tennessee players. These are kind of some of the guys that we're ahead of the market on, and who I think our subscribers are the people that use our ranks are going to end up with a little bit more of in the underdog format, which is the best way to play best ball, by the way.
It is. I love that shit. Underdog.
Hopefully we're all eligible. Guys. I don't know. I know some people still aren't. Pennsylvania just got it finally.
Oh shit! No, I got it here. No, I love it. The Daniel Jones call. As Aaron knows, I'm a big fan of quarterbacks. They can also run the ball. and everybody's gonna, laugh at his trip and all that. And it was funny. But remember what he did up till that. Like, dude, of course, he's not quite your Russell Wilson, right? But he's not bad either, man. And he's going to give you some of that. And so I'm all for the quarterbacks that provide that, particularly late in drafts. So I love that call. Aaron, quickly, anything you want to add before your nefarious numbers?
So Brian Edwards, just real quick, one of the stats I loved, people forgot about him last year, but he actually started for the Raiders and then got hurt. And that's when Nelson Aguilar took over. And when Aguilar took over, in 13 games where he was the starter, he had 4 top 13 wide receiver performances. Best ball was perfect for Nelson Aguilar. You don't want to start him in any other format because he'd have dud weeks too. So Brian Edwards, who was just as efficient as Nelson Aguilar was, like people talk about how great of a season he had, Brian Edwards, from an efficiency standpoint, was right there too. So I love that call, especially I want to say his overall ADP was outside the top 180. He's still practically free. And yeah, like that was the Raider receiver that I alluded to earlier. Like, yes, you want Darren Waller because he's the guy there, but Edwards is the other Raiders receiver that could have those boom weeks you look for, especially if you go running back heavy and you're literally taking high upside dart throws. He's perfect. One of the other guys that I like, I'll mention a handcuff guy, sticking with the Raiders as well. Kenyon Drake. That backfield is messy. I don't know what they're going to do with Jacobs and Drake. If Jacobs gets hurt, and he was starting to get banged up last year, if Jacobs misses time, this is what John Gruden, Greg Olson, the offense coordinator, do with running back. Last year, Jacobs missed just one game, and Devontae Booker had like a top 20 performance. Kenyon Drake, he wasn't good last year with the Cardinals from efficiency, but he's going to get volume. It was Booker got 17 touches in a game. So if Jacobs gets hurt, like Kenyon Drake would be a top 15 running back in terms of points per game. So that's like, you start off with receivers, heavy receiver drafts. Like you have to get Kenyon Drake, just him and Tony Pollard. Those are those high upside running backs that, yeah, you're praying for an injury, but great offenses that are going to feature running backs.
Tony Pollard. All right. Nefarious numbers. 3 is taken, Mr. Aaron.
Well, Ray is the five-time.
That's true.
Five-time champion.
5 times.
So
All 5. I wish they let me keep that goddamn belt. I had that thing so many times. They never let me keep it.
They should have. Oh, this one's great. This is the one on here that I thought was fantastic. Defend hot pockets. That's all you got to do. Defend
hot pockets.
Yes.
Well, desperate times call for desperate measures.
That's probably all you need to say.
And when the world ended with coronavirus, hot pockets, they were there for you. They were comfort food. When Texas froze over and I couldn't leave my house, hot pockets were there. When we had power, rolling power surges. But you know what? Those hot pockets, you just warm them up just a little bit. And they'd still burn the heck out of your tongue. And you'd be like, that's what I needed because I'm busy freezing over here in Texas somehow. So Hot Pockets, they were there during those college years when I had no money. It's my motivation right there. When I sit there and I go, why am I writing about the Raiders and the Jets? I look up at my motivational poster for Hot Pockets and go, that's why.
I'm not going to lie, man. Oh, go ahead, Ray.
I was gonna say this would have been one I would like to get too, because it's kind of got the same. If it's good enough for me to live off of in college, it's why shouldn't it be good enough, to not defend in this situation?
When you have those late nights and you're sitting there and you're just stuck at 2:00 in the morning, where you're like, how the hell am I gonna make all these parts of this article just flow and connect? How am I gonna find my word of the day to sneak into the article to probably drive Ray a little crazy?
Well, I've only have to look up something like 2 or 3 times in a given article. I consider that it's a learning experience, really, for me.
Well, I'll also tell you that, to have a little bit more fun with the articles there is I just started kind of creating these challenges for me. I'm like, so what's the word of the day? And can I make it fit in this article and not seem too forced.
I remember
figure,
one.
Oh,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, I was like, I don't know how many articles a day, a night that Ray edits, but I'm like, hopefully I can make him laugh a little.
Yeah.
There was one I remember writing that I think it was for the infirmary, and I just started it out. Holy hell. I think because it was a bad week of injuries. And I was like, I wonder if that'll stay in there or not. And it did. And I was like, okay, okay.
Yep. Everybody's. I feel like since I've been full time editing articles now for Underworld for just under 2 years now. So June 2019 is when I started full time editing everything that went up on site. And just I think in that time, I feel like a lot of the guys that write regularly, semi regularly, like I feel like we're all starting to kind of develop our own like gimmicks in a way, like our person,
Right.
kind of that's starting to shine through a little bit more. I mean, not that I guess I try to always keep up with the articles like through the years, but not that like people didn't have flavors. We've had a lot of people come through and write for us at one point or another. Then I go back sometimes. I look at some of these old articles. I'm like, oh man, that's like I forgot that that this person has a tie to us here and there. Like Denny Carter, I've edited like one or two things that that he's written and I've like put up there randomly. But everyone I feel like is kind of developing their own like style in a way, and that's kind of what you want. Like,
right.
And we're bringing on a lot of new guys, and I'm kind of hoping that we can between like letting them write their own things, and we kind of structured a little bit of a program for the newer guys too to try to get them to write certain pieces to get them to start thinking about like learning how to use the website and the metrics and all that stuff, and then letting them find their own like kind of gimmick that way. And so far, I think it's going pretty well as far as that goes. Is keeping up the fun. Like you said, like adding like words, the fun words like that, make things a little bit more interesting. I try to, add some dry humor, and at this point, I've been just doing it long enough. I've kind of developed the YOLO enough attitude where I'm just kind of like, what, I can get it. Sometimes I feel like I can take a creative liberty here and there. I feel like I've hopefully earned that cred.
You do a great job there. As Ryan said, and I do the same thing. It's like I'll like kind of put some things in there, and I'm like, will I keep it? Will I keep it? Like
most of the time, yes, I'll keep it.
I'm like, where is too far?
I'm just like, I got to keep on brand. Like, even brand isn't all that far off from me. I got to keep on it. So I try and incorporate that into the fantasy writing.
And I've left hidden messages in. I don't think I did it on Roto Underworld, but like the other set that I was writing for this past year, Gridiron Experts, it'd be stuff where like if you took the first letter of each paragraph, like it would spell out something that was relevant for that week. I can't even think of. Yeah. You add new challenges as a writer just to keep it fresh.
Absolutely, that makes sense.
All right. Let's move on. Oh, by the way, I'm very familiar with Hot Pockets, particularly in my time. My two youngest were very colicky. So there was a lot of not sleeping and eating a lot of shit. And hey, Hot Pockets were involved. You got to love them. And moving on. Next trivia question. Get ready, gents. Was Russell Wilson a top 5 quarterback last season? Go.
No.
Very good, Ray. Very good. Very good. And you must pick. Okay, I probably don't need to get the board. We going best ball again, or you want to roll into some dynasty management or rookie love?
I feel like I was gonna say rookie love, but I think I'm actually let's go best ball one more time. Best ball.
All right. So I'm trying to decide because you covered a lot. So we're going to go early round strategy. How are you attacking the beginning of a draft? Is it going to depend where you're at in the draft? Obviously, that can make a big difference. So what is your strategy? Aaron and I always talk about being flexible. You can't be in the draft and just try and stick to something if it's not going to work. But how do you like to approach just the beginning of a best ball draft. And feel free to not give away all secrets or anything like that, but give us some of what you got.
I mean, when I can help it, I've going back. I did some of these underdog drafts last year too. I entered a best ball mania here and there, and just kind of did some drafts. And I always just found myself gravitating towards the RB heavy starts, and I don't usually end up in a spot where there's in the first round, no matter like how late I'm drafting, like the way the drafts always end up shaking out. Like if like for me, like I think there's always a running back that I can talk myself into at the back end of like the first round there. Because if I'm thinking about a wide receiver early, like round 1 or 2, it's somebody that's in the Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, maybe Devontae, like the Devontae Adams range. But usually there's another running back that'll fall, like an Aaron Jones will sometimes be there at the end of the first round, and he's being pushed down by a lot of the uncertainty going surrounding Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. But there's always, even if the draft start, particularly running back heavy, you'll usually see somebody that wants to take a Travis Kelce on the early side, or like Tyreek Hill will go pretty early too. So because of that, I tend to kind of favor a running back heavy start. I'd like to start with at least 3, because the way the values have shaped up, like there's always seems to be like a third guy. I mean, for a while that guy was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but his ADP is kind of starting to creep back up into that late second round range, and that's a little bit of a fair value. But even if you go 2 running backs, and a receiver to build around, to anchor around, and 3 early running backs, I think is essential for that heavy build. You don't want to, because you want to devote as many roster spots as possible to these wide receivers late that you want to just throw darts at and take chances on. The best way to do that is to have, if you really want to go, full, I guess, robustish, 4, elite-ish type running backs to start, as long as, you end up with, I think, 2 quarterbacks in those first like 6-7 rounds. As far as like early to mid round strategies, definitely I favor the running back heavy start. You can do it like I was alluding to with a wide receiver heavy start to get like, a guy like a Kenyon Drake as your RB1. Myles Gaskin was that guy for a while till his ADP started to correct. But you're gonna want, a guy like a Dak Prescott is someone that we think we're going to be targeting a good amount of Prescott and some Cowboy stacks. Jalen Hurts going around these areas, just getting 2 of these mobile quarterbacks and then not having to worry about that. And then if you've got enough running backs, maybe you take a 5th one later, and then just the rest of your draft, you can focus on, and if you nab 2 tight ends that fall, like the dream build, I think for me would be, like I was alluding to before, 2 mobile quarterbacks. Even if, the second one is, someone in like the Ryan Tannehill, Joe Burrow range, I feel I'm pretty comfortable with that. And, 2 tight ends, preferably, knowing that for these bigger tournaments, you basically need everything to go right anyway. So even though an injury or 2 would kind of kill you, it's, you do have to get lucky in that regard. So right. But I feel that's just kind of how I approached it a little bit last year. I tried to go a little more on the running back heavy side. And I think the 2 quarterbacks is going to be the key. Like that's going to be, because I see a lot of people go with 3 in these drafts, and that's fine. If you can get a third guy, like we were talking about before, like a Wentz or a Daniel Jones, I think it's worth it. But I like to go 2.
Yeah, I definitely think you can make it work with 2. Okay, Aaron, quick thought? Yes? No?
Yeah, just real quick too. I guess it decides on like how I start the draft. You're either going 0 RB, 0 wide receiver, so 0 running back. I'm looking for some early stacks with QB and maybe 2 receivers. So the Cowboy stack is a favorite. As everyone that listens to Matt Kelly on the podcast and is listening to this podcast, like Cowboys play a very favorable schedule, and it's possible to get Cooper, Lamb, Dak in those first 5-6 rounds. That's a great stack if you're going to go 0 RB. Seattle Seahawks, just mainly, I know Russell Wilson kind of fell off in the second half of the season. Still, we know if you can get Metcalf and Lockett, even with them bringing in Dwayne Eskridge, like that offense is still on paper mainly those two receivers, and those the weeks that Metcalf and Lockett had, oh my gosh, like that stack there was probably winning you weeks alone. And zero receiver is interesting. Like I'll shift to running quarterbacks that I don't want to target their receivers at all. So I like getting a Lamar Jackson, maybe J.K. Dobbins, because I can go and get Gus Edwards later in the draft and go, okay, these three guys are going to score a lot of touchdowns on the ground. Josh Allen, no stack at all, because Diggs is great, but I can randomly go Josh Allen with whatever I'm doing at running back. If I'm going zero wide receiver and I'm not caring about getting receivers with quarterbacks early on, I can do that. And then if I wanted like a late quarterback, Derek Carr, because if I'm going zero receiver, I could say, okay, Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs, because that offense, it's not pretty, it's not efficient, but it's a top 10 offense. And you didn't want any receivers, so why not get like the two guys to touch the ball, and then like later in the draft you get Derek Carr to kind of complete the stack, and maybe even throw in a Kenyon Drake if you want to. Stacking running backs is ugly, but it helps kind of protect. If anything happens with Jacobs, boom, Drake skyrockets. So just depends on strategy there. And I think kind of look at that. I'm a little bit more open with zero RBs because I like my QB wide receiver stacks a lot more.
Interesting. Okay.
Ooh, let's go number 2.
Okay. You must hold your breath until you answer the question. Start now. Hold your breath. What is Peyton Manning's jersey number multiplied by Russell Wilson's jersey number?
54?
I believe that's correct. Yeah. Very good, sir. Very good, sir.
That's why my emails got tutoring in it.
Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. Question number 4. And we're going to try and run through this. How many fingers am I holding up?
4?
Aaron.
4. Oh, wait, are you on the thumb up now?
You said 4.
I thought I saw this. Oh, no.
Right.
This ref's rigged.
Ray.
Did I get it?
What did I miss it? I didn't hear you. What'd you say?
I had said 4.
Oh, you said 4 too.
I think we both saw this, and then
Definitely right. Yep, that's what I saw. I figured it was a trick question. Even with the thumb, I figured it's 4 fingers and a thumb.
Yeah,
no, I totally added the thumb after he said 4. Just screw him over, but that's okay.
It's a heel move.
It's funny because if people are just listening to the podcast, they're not going to know what's going on half the time anyway. So, anyway,
what Ryan didn't know is that this was a face versus face match.
Hey, this is a lost art. The great baby face.
So wait, do we both have to do the punishment, or is it ref's decision?
I say you each do one. That's what we're going to do. And then we're just going to knock off a round. So we'll each do one. Ray, you pick first.
Give me number 1 for representing the Giants foam finger. Actually, it's even funnier. You can't see this because I'm just waving my blood red Giants foam finger that debuted on the Underworld stream on night 2 of the draft. And I brought it back for Now we're back to
I was going to say, that is a red as shit hand. Anyway, spell Albert O's last name. Ooh. Albert O. Albert, I wrote down. I didn't know how to say it. I should have rehearsed it again, but I did.
All righty, let's see. I'm going to try to do this off memory. All right, Albert O. Okwigubunum or something like that. So let's go.
Okuwebunum is how you pronounce it. Okuwebunum.
Oh, let's see. I had this in my head just a second ago. Okay. WUEGBUNUM.
Oh, so close. N-A-M. You had it till the end. So close.
Oh,
All right.
I can't believe I was even that close. I just kind of pulled that one out of my ass.
I thought you had this shit. Once you got through the
I thought you had
WUEG
it.
part, I was like, he's got it. And then
I felt good about it at the end. So, oh my God. So when I was younger, like in grade school, like up until about like 6th grade, like spelling bees like were my jam. Like I got to the school grades or two, and 4th grade, 5th grade, just wrecked spelling bees left and right. Boom. Like if I had done any better, like, I would maybe like, entered like, more serious, like, out of school competition. 6th grade, I get the word propeller and I'm sitting there like, oh, this is fucking easy as shit. And I just run through it. And instead of, whatever, I still to this day will get it wrong. I think I said ER and it was OR and I was so sure. It was like the very end. I was like, I answered it like I was, of course. And then they're like, nope. I'm like, wait, what?
Oh no.
I mean, I could still like, the magic was over at that point.
Oh,
I could spell Fryermuth right now with my eyes closed, probably because I've been writing it out so much. And last year, if I had the question last year, I probably would have gotten it right. But just being one letter off, I'm like, here comes the bad flashbacks.
so it's like being an NFL kicker. Once you miss, you get out of the zone and
Right.
Yep.
Crushes you a little bit. All right, Aaron. Now your turn.
Let's do number 4.
I also meant to award like random ass points throughout this whole thing just for no reason.
It's kind of hard.
Glad I brought that up. All right. Oh, it's the other spelling one. Spell the name of the Dolphins' starting quarterback.
I think I can. So just last name, right?
No, the full name. Full
Okay.
name, Aaron.
Oh, wait. So we're not talking about just Tua. It's like, what is his full first name?
Oh no,
Is
just
Okay.
just Tua Tagovailoa. I thought you were
Okay.
saying yeah.
I was just making sure because I actually think his like full Hawaiian name Tua is actually short for something.
Oh,
but we'll just
I
go.
just looked it up. You don't want to try to spell it. It's literally probably impossible.
Because I don't even know what it is. It's just I was like, he's Hawaiian. It's probably got 5 apostrophes.
It's no apostrophes. Can I try to pronounce it just once so you can see what you're working with here?
Oh boy.
It appears to be Tuanegamanuolepola.
It took me long enough to get
approximately 18 letters.
Oh boy. Wow. Well, we'll just go to a TUA, and then it's Tagovailoa, but it's Tagovailoa.
All right, good job, Aaron. Right on.
Very nice.
Okay.
The Tagovailoa is always like sounds like tongue.
Tonga, yeah. So Matt always says it on air.
Tagovailoa.
That's how I heard it was pronounced. Tongue. You say tongue.
Mm-hmm. Like Tunyon.
I see this crazy first name. Like I knew Tua had to be short for something. But let's see. Oh boy.
18. It's 18 letters long. His first name.
That's insane.
Is yours going to be spelled Giannis? Is that what yours is? Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Oh my god.
Okay, so for the topic, I'm just going to pick one from Rookie Love. We're going to do that, and then we'll move on to the final round. Close down this tea party. Okay. Running backs after the top 3 in rookie drafts that you actually like. Ray, go ahead and start off.
So I think one that I don't know if you guys feel similarly about Jared Dokes, who I've been getting in a number of rookie drafts, and as just the guy at the very end who, I mean, granted he's a 7th round pick, and we always talk about how, you'd rather go undrafted sometimes than be, a 7th round pick and not have control of where you go. If you go undrafted, you can choose your destination. Right. But I think this is a very weird year as far as running backs go, because only 4 guys got picked in the first 2 days. And that is very rare that few get picked. So in that case, like, and the guys that did go in the 4th round, like Michael Carter, ended up in a great situation. Do these guys get a little bit more of a bump, even though they're 7th round picks? I mean, a lot of people were high on Kylan Hill before he fell into the 7th round. Jamar Jefferson, same thing. But Jared Doak, same thing. He's a 7th round pick, and he may have the highest draft capital of anyone in that Miami backfield, because they're all undrafted guys. As much of a revelation as Myles Gaskin was last year. One thing I love about Dokes is that he's got the highest athleticism score, which is a player profiler metric that right now the data analysis tool, but it's kind of like a proprietary, kind of like SparkX score, but with not as much emphasis on like the bench press and more on like the athleticism metrics. And it's kind of like the James Robinson corollary. Last year, James Robinson, had the highest athleticism score for whatever it's worth. And this year, Dokes is the guy among the rookies in this class. He's got the highest athleticism score. And athleticism is hugely important for, the running back position. And I think that's why a lot of the underworld types are drawn to a guy like a Jared Dokes. And he's probably, I know Javian Hawkins is another one that we like a good amount. And I don't know if Aaron's got anyone in mind. I'll let him touch on one or two. But Dokes for me is kind of the one I've been ending up with the most in these rookie draft situations. I'm trading back a lot, and by the time I'm finally picking, it's like the 3rd, 4th round, and there's not a whole lot left to choose from. So I just go with the athletic running back.
For me, this guy has been Elijah Mitchell, because you mentioned draft capital. Same thing in San Francisco. Got a bunch of undrafted guys. Then you got, Trey Sermon, who does have the draft capital, but he has no speed, and Elijah Mitchell does. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. So, and what's one of the rules we've kind of learned around here? You go for the cheapest guy, right? And I would say right now, Elijah Mitchell, I am ending up with a lot of him, and because I once upon a time like Mostert, I think he's about done. Jeff Wilson, they've never given a major role to. He has a specific thing they've asked him to do. And it's not like he's had, it. So I'm looking at it and I'm seeing those 2 guys, and I could see possibly Elijah Mitchell looking a little better in that offense. But that's the one I've got in plenty of rookie drafts this year. Aaron.
So going late as well. So I think that's kind of the trend that we're all doing here is we'll find those 6th, 7th round running backs. There's one more athletic running back. Chris Evans has some traits at the late in rookie drafts. That's what you're looking for, is just elite traits. And you kind of tell a story. You're like, well, at least with Evans, 94th percentile burst, 92nd percentile agility, a weird career in Michigan. There's some suspension and everything, but he did play in a Power 5 school. Best comparables, Damian Harris. That's a nice comparison for a player drafted late in the NFL draft. And he went to the Bengals. They got Mixon. Bernard's not there anymore. So the competition for backup running back is Chris Evans, Samaje P. Ryan, and Travion Williams. That's a pretty easy depth chart for a rookie 6th round running back to climb. And yeah, Mixon's going to be there. Mixon's going to be in the way, but we saw Bernard get some use with Mixon. And Evans, I think, profiles as a guy that can play, maybe not to the extent that Bernard was able to as a pass catching running back, but that type of athleticism, especially the agility score, usually works out well for running backs that are going to be a pass catching running back. Athletic, he's played at a Power 5 school. I'll roll the dice.
It's like traits, like you said. You want to talk about, circling a tiny bit back to the Dalvin Cook talk. A guy with a trait is this is a guy you'll want to add to one of your nefarious punishments as a spelling. The guy the Vikings drafted, Kenny Nwangu.
Oh yeah, Nwangu. Yeah.
Number 1 speed scorer in the class among running backs, and that's among the most predictive metrics Yeah, for running backs, 4th-round pick. I mean, Cook, anything does happen to Cook, I'm not so sure he doesn't, end up threatening for the backup job over Madison at some point in the season.
And I love his. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Aaron.
I love his best comparable player. It's Corey Grant, former Jacksonville running back, who was he had his time in the sun for like just a brief second, but like that is a spot on comparable player because Corey Grant didn't do it in Auburn. He was stuck behind other running backs and never really got the chance to play. Kene, he might be good. We don't know because he played alongside David Montgomery, and when Montgomery left, Breece Hall, who might be the top running back in next year's class. I'll have to check with Cody on that one, but I know Breece Hall, there's a lot of hype there. So this poor guy like has all the athleticism and just stuck with having to play against David Montgomery. He wasn't the first running back of his draft class, but I remember a lot of people thought he was the best in that draft class, and Breece Hall could be the best NFL running back of his rookie class. So it's potential. I like it.
Indeed. All right. Very final question for the very final round. Get the hell out of here. After Travis Kelce and Darren Waller, who was third at tight end in PPR leagues in 2020?
After Kelce and Waller, you said? Ooh, this is a tough one. Oh, I feel like it should be obvious. But I don't. Oh, God. Now I've got the fear of being wrong. That was up there. I don't really have a guess.
Aaron.
See, this was for last season. Total points, yes. Not points per game.
No, total points.
I know
Mark
it's
Andrews.
End of the year, you had Kelce, Waller, then who?
I'm gonna say Mark Andrews.
No.
Let's just throw a shot in the dark. It wasn't Hawkins. No, there's no way he finished that high.
Onion.
I'm trying to think of. That's a good question. Like,
it certainly is not Kittle. Like it's because he missed too much time.
Right.
Like always, like one of the top three. Like.
Yeah, I was surprised with that one. But when I looked it up in PPR scoring, he was third. I was like, holy shit.
Wait, it was Kittle?
No.
Oh.
Tanyan. Sorry, I was talking about Tanyan.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm doing the freaking Packers for the draft kit. Why the hell didn't I not the most efficient league?
Oh, that's a good one. Holy moly.
Man,
Okay. One final nefarious number, Aaron. I don't even remember what the hell this one is. Oh, this is too bad. Name the 4 AFC South teams in alphabetical order by city. Go.
Let's see.
I should have made you hold your breath.
I know. That's so we've got Houston Texans, we've got Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars. Oh, you said city?
Yes. You're going. You're good.
Well, I was like Tennessee Titans and they're Nashville. Okay, so that works. Yes.
Oh, it didn't have to be that specific, but either way, there you go.
I was like, well, Tennessee's a state. Oh.
No, so you're right. I phrased that poorly. It wouldn't be the first time. Okay.
I had to watch out for the ref. He tried to get me once.
That's true. That's true.
If there's any gimmick that'll never run tired, as if you don't overdo it, it's the crooked ref.
Absolutely.
I was waiting because I know they had the Kenny Omega, Rich Swann title for title match, and I know that Aubrey Edwards from AEW is the referee. I'm like, is she going to be part of a screw job finish? Like, I'd be all in.
That would be crazy.
No, that would have been nuts. But I like that she stuck with that she's there to call it right down the.
Like, she must be Jericho's appointed ref. Jericho is the best. Last year's Stadium Stampede. He's just yelling at her that she's a shitty referee.
Yeah, that was so great.
That's one of my favorites. The things they've done. Absolutely epic. And they're doing it again. I can't fucking wait.
Yeah.
Me too. I think the only thing that seems weird is that, they went blood and guts really quickly to Stadium Stampede. I'm like,
Mhm.
that's probably the only thing where I go, that seems pretty rushed, but I'll be open to it because I remember watching last year's Stadium Stampede and going, this is nuts in all the right ways.
Uh, everything, everything was awesome about it.
All right. Last category, Mr. Ray Ray. Are we rolling best ball again? Or one of these other categories, rookie love, dynasty management? What are we doing? What are we doing?
So we already talked about we only did Dynasty once. Why don't let's go to Dynasty.
All right. Ooh, I think this is a good one. Who are some of your top trade targets? Who are you looking at trying to trade for this offseason?
See, it's a tough one. This is a lot of trade questions. I feel like are all a lot, a lot of them are situationally dependent. But what I've been doing a lot of is getting a lot of the most active I've been trading so far in the last little while has been during these rookie drafts, and the players that I'm getting in deals, and I always think that maybe I could add a little bit more. In some instances I would turn down the first deal, and I wouldn't always turn down the first deal. I want to keep people guessing a little bit, but now I would always get a little bit more. But it's like it's interesting because the players that I end up getting are players that I would actually answer this question with. So it all seems to kind of work out. And I think for me, the one guy that, and I think a lot of the underworld, higher up types are a little bit conflicted on Tyler Boyd, given the arrival of Jamar Chase and how, it's, some people think it could affect Higgins more or Boyd more. And to me, Boyd has just always been one of those players that, like, if you bench him, and then you sit there, you're not allowed to wonder why you got 8 for 87 and 2 touchdowns on your bench, because he is that guy who he's that weapon in the slot, and that's just the way, like, his style is conducive to the offensive Bengals are running now, and they're going to pass the ball a lot. I don't think, he's probably most effective in the slot, but they're going to pass the ball so much. It's not really going to matter. I don't think. I think, Chase, they'll probably want to use him as much as they can in as many areas of the field, but I don't think that Tyler Boyd is, to me, he's certainly not a sell. He's somebody I'm trying to acquire. And, and if I can move down, get him as, some people would consider him a throw-in in a deal.
Right.
One rookie draft, I traded down twice, first from the middle of I think it was from like the middle of the first round first. And then near the end of the first round, the second trade down is the one where I ended up getting Boyd as the throw in. I'm like, it's better than I got the first time. But the players I've been getting in these situations are guys that I feel like some people might be a little ready to give up on. Like, people are ready to give up on KJ Hamler after 1 year. But if, even if, you can say if Aaron Rodgers gets there, but even if Teddy Bridgewater, who's always been a really good deep passer, is any better than Drew Lock and plays any number of games to start the season, I think Hamler can more than return value. I think we just kind of at the end of the season kind of scratched the surface of what he could be. Give him some competent quarterback play. It's for me, it's these receivers that I'm trying to bolster my team within these trades, because I feel like I've also in this offseason I've acquired on various teams Deontay Johnson and Kenny Galladay. And Deontay Johnson's another one that I think that some people in the dynasty, world may be worrying a little too much about, this season, Ben Roethlisberger and how his arm strength is diminished. I mean, it's not like Deontay Johnson's a bad player, man. I think he had he's had some drop issues, and I know last year he had concussion, but these are the kinds of players that I'm always looking to see who people are willing to throw in deals like this. I've been in situations where I was able to, I've had people tell me that they were floored that I didn't take Kyle Pitts at a certain spot. But for me, like, I'd rather take the production that I know I'm going to get from a player that I'm going to be getting as what basically amounts to a throw-in. But these are also guys that you should be trying to acquire, these third receiver types on offenses that are going to pass the ball a lot. And, Galladay is certainly not a third receiver, but some people may be afraid of the fact that he's getting a little older and that he's switching teams. but that's going to be a wide open division, and they really don't not much else. I mean, Darius Slayton is a guy I went to bat for a little bit last year, but we saw how overmatched he was in an alpha role. So those are my guys.
I dig it. I like a lot of them. I like the second, third receiver, take as well, because I really love CeeDee Lamb. Now, I've only been able to acquire him in a couple of leagues, but that's pretty fucking good, because obviously there's going to be some guys that are like, no, you're just not going to offer enough. But I just have a feeling that I know the deal from Aaron, I should say, with Amari Cooper's contract. And I just feel like the ascension of CeeDee Lamb to that team's number one begins this year. I fully believe it. And so I love getting him if you can. But those second and third, I mean, he's more higher end second guy, I guess. But I can't give up on Odell. And you can get him pretty cheap, man. I mean, so give me some Odell. Cooper Kupp is another one. There's something about Stafford to the Rams that I actually really like. And I feel like Stafford's going to have something to prove. McVay's going to have something to prove. And I think they're just going to come out trying to roll. And so I think, they've got some young pieces there, but I still believe it's Kupp and Woods. And so I kind of want a piece of that. So that's kind of where I stand on some of those, because it's tougher to get. I think people are catching on, at least some of the people in my leagues, player profilers growing. People are listening. They're paying attention. They hear about running back age apex. It was just this offseason. Somebody was like, I can't do that. Dalvin Cook's approaching his running back age apex. And I was like, oh, shit. Somebody knows exactly why I'm trying to get rid of Dalvin Cook. and so, it makes it a little tougher. But yeah, I think I acquired DeAndre Swift this offseason. That was someone I think I traded involving a trade with George Kittle was the guy I was giving up. And so, anytime I can make a move for a young running back, I'm going to try and do it. But I'm also trying to find those cheap receivers like an Odell Beckham that I think are going to, be a lot more relevant next year, which will not only help me, but they'll increase their value and make them more tradable themselves. So, and I love to get players like that. So, Aaron, please finish it off.
The Tyler Boyd in particular is just, it's perfect, because people are freaking out about all the wrong things. Like they go, well, they've added Jamar Chase. Yeah, but AJ Green vacated 102 targets by himself. Yep. Like, that's going to be fine. And Tyler Boyd, one of the splits that is just, it's shocking, is his splits with Burrow and without Burrow. He played 10 games with Joe Burrow. He averaged 14.76 fantasy points in PPR. He played 5 games without Burrow, and he averaged 6.08 fantasy points. He had that one game where he had a 72-yard touchdown catch, and that saved him over a 5-game span. Like, that one play gave him just about all it, like, it was, let's see, he scored 30.2 fantasy points, a 72-yard touchdown catch in one game gave him almost half of the fantasy points that he had in 5 games without Burrow. Burrow's back. And to put in perspective, like, where Tyler Boyd finished last season, Amari Cooper, who we talked about, he finished with 14.7 fantasy points, and that was number 22 amongst all wide receivers. So Boyd with Joe Burrow, even with AJ Green commanding 100 plus targets in a season, and T. Higgins there, he was putting up wide receiver 2 numbers. And so the floor is, I expected the same volume, and the floor is in PPR. He's a wide receiver 3 and still putting up, like, he might not have massive upside, but he's a guy you plug in, that you're going to get a decent floor point. So I love the Tyler Boyd one. And he's perfect because everyone just thinks he's trash now. perfect guy to target. And I also had T. Higgins because it's the Jamar Chase effect. It's
Right.
Jamar Chase is the wide receiver one in the rookie class. So both receivers, like the debate about who it affects the most, and I maybe a little bit for both guys, but yeah, AJ Green's leaving plenty of targets for all three of those guys to be fantasy relevant. AJ Dillon, because this rookie class was so bad at running back, like second round of the 2021 rookie draft, you're looking at Trey Sermon and Michael Carter. Give me Dillon over both those guys. So if you're sitting there hurting at running back, I had someone in a league that wanted the 202, and they made a good push for it, and I had to say yes. And then they turned around and used the 202 on Michael Carter. I'm like, why? Like, why are you drafting this guy that profiles as maybe a complimentary running back? When Dillon, is he a perfect prospect? No, but he's got athleticism. He's a big old guy. Like he can handle a full workload. And when I did my transaction implication piece on Aaron Jones, it's like, hey, start putting trades for AJ Dillon now, because in a couple of years, like the way that contract's structured, like they're going to move on from Aaron Jones. It'll be the perfect time. He'll be, I think, 28 years old. You're really not wanting to pay a running back top dollars at that point. Get AJ Dillon, who looks like a slightly smaller version of Derrick Henry. Boom. Like you'll have to play the long game. And then I like some of the veteran guys that just are in the news for like recent news. Julio Jones, like I get it, it's a bit risky, but I don't think you're gonna have to give up a first round pick for him. Like I haven't seen any trades where people are trading Julio and giving up a first round pick. So man, if you're a receiver away from truly contending in your leagues, I feel like you're going to get Julio Jones at good value. You can get away. You can negotiate with the other owner and go, he's Julio. He's 32 years old. He's injured, and you can talk your way out of paying a first round pick for proven production. I'll do that. Michael Thomas, if people are still selling low. I mentioned Kamara earlier in his struggles without Breeze. In the 4 games without Breeze, Michael Thomas actually had 37 targets. So he's still getting targeted. I think it was 37 targets. So it was right between 35 and 40. So man, without, and those were Taysom Hill targets. And that the rest of the receivers there, Traquan Smith, he actually does quite a bit of blocking. Like great athletic profile, but they don't always utilize him. He'll have his games, but the Saints have gone on record and gone, yeah, we really like Traquan Smith's blocking. Like, oh, so it's good for Michael Thomas. Marquez Callaway, exciting player to watch, but still has to kind of earn a bigger role. I like Michael Thomas, especially like his price, what it was just a year ago versus now, because he's old news in Dynasty. People are quick to move on to the next big thing. And final 2 guys, because they're in a similar spot, Ezekiel Elliott, Miles Sanders. Their team, people go with Sanders. They're bringing in all these running backs. None of those running backs matter. They're not a serious threat to Sanders. And Zeke was not efficient last year, but everything, like when Dak played, Zeke was putting up RB1 numbers. And I definitely think that Dak being injured and you putting Andy Dalton out there, like defenses are able to go, oh, it's Andy Dalton. We just have to stack the box. So both running backs, they're workhorse running backs. NFC East, great schedule, as we've mentioned a few times here on this podcast. And I'm currently, like, I have a league mate that is practically giving away Zeke. He's not pursuing like multiple first rounders or anything like that. So for the first time, maybe in his career, Zeke's actually affordable. Granted, probably looking at maybe 2 years, but we like Pollard. He's super, super efficient, but if Zeke's there, they're going to run him to the wheels fall off.
Mm-hmm. I got Zeke in the end of the 3rd round of a super flex startup that I did earlier in the year. I'm like, that seems like a pretty massive overcorrection.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I don't like paying for older running backs. I mean, I've kind of gotten burned on Le'Veon Bell, where I'm at the point where I've been trying for years to move him, but I don't like paying for older running backs. But with Zeke, I go there's volume, and I think I could get 2 good years out of Zeke, 2 solid seasons.
He's certainly in the right offense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Very well done, gents. I kept score silently throughout that whole thing, and I do have Ray down with 2,972, and Aaron down with 6. So,
oh man, not my best performance.
It was close. Close.
You're within 2,786 points, approximate.
Man, I got outscored like the Las Vegas Raiders did, but don't tell Raiders fans that.
Ooh.
Watch out. They got a top 10 offense.
Is there anything we're good at doing? It's alienating Raiders Twitter.
There we go.
And Dwayne Eskridge.
Yeah. And Dwayne Eskridge.
Sorry, Eskridge. Our bad.
It's okay. I drafted you in best ball, I promise.
On that note, we will get ready to get the hell out of here. Any final thoughts from either one of you? I know we're both gearing up. We're all 3 of us gearing up for a Scott Fisher Bowl. We'll all be partaking this year. So any final thoughts on anything before we get the hell out of here?
Anybody planning on using a Scott Fishbowl draft pick on a kicker? Because there's a kicker flex option, and as far as I understand it, and I know that what's interesting to me about the kicker flex option in the Scott Fishbowl is that like some of these guys are they're gonna put up weeks that you're gonna want to play them, but like I can't justify taking more than one, just streaming from week to week if that's the case for a flex spot. Just find a kicker who has the potential to put up 15, 20-point weeks. Yeah, sure, maybe it helps, but
right.
I don't know. I just who's gonna be the person who especially because there's that app. I don't know if I know Josh Hornsby created an app through Roto Grinder, so you could look at where people are drafting people throughout the Scott Fishbowl drafts. But I think a lot of people do sometimes they see they want to be the earliest on somebody to plant the flag, or it's interesting to see who's the earliest on someone, who's the latest on someone, and who is going to be the person who drafts Kyle Pitts at 101. I know it's coming. I fucking know it.
Somebody
I just don't know who it's going to be. And I've said this on Twitter, and one buddy said to me, he's you do it. I dare you. I'm like, no goddamn way. First of all, I'm not going to get the 101s. I don't think.
It's my first year in Scott Fishbowl. I can't finish last. I mean, right? I feel like that gets me fired, from Roto Underworld.
Last year was the worst. I was in the bottom 300 last year. Is easily the worst I've ever done in the Fishbowl. So I don't think your standing will be affected too much by my placement. I hope, unless I just made the cutoff. Who knows?
Dude, I saw that.
We'll keep Ray around.
I saw that kicker flex thing, and I was like, ooh, this could be interesting. We'll see. I'm not going to draft one early. But in the very last rounds, if there's a really good one there, I might. There could be some very valuable weeks there.
Yeah, just find someone who's got a good week 1 matchup, and they might score a shitload of points, and just take them.
That's true. Hell yes. Scott Fishbowl. Representing hard this year, I would say we are. Okay, let's get the hell out of here. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. It was a blast, buddy. We much appreciate your work. Dude's helped me out a lot since I joined. He's been good shit. So it's nice to have him on the pod.
I'll let you have me. It's been a lot of fun. I had to finally get on, talk some raps, talk some ball, and wave my foam finger all over the place.
Oh, the big red finger was great. Aaron, buddy, any final thoughts before we peace out?
Man, what an awesome pod here. Thank you, Ryan, man. You put this whole game together, and it was great.
Hey, man, just trying to have fun. All right, guys. Everyone take care. Until next time, we are out of here. Peace out.